Today, we're going to talk about blogging, and that might feel kind of strange in 2025.
It does.
Does it? Yeah, okay. So,
Especially after helpful content update 2023.
exactly.
PTSD.
You're here for the trauma. We'll do some trauma bonding here today. Okay. Well, this is kind of what we want to talk about today is this question.
You're out of here, man.
I'm scaring people away already. Okay. What they missed is there's hope, okay? There's hope. Because we want to talk about this. How did an old blog post lead to a paying client who never read the blog post? That's the question. We're gonna dive into that today. I'm guessing most of you, if you're here, have a blog of some, like you've blogged, you've got content. And does it feel like at this point you just wasted all that time? Is that kind of what it feels like? No? Good. I'm so glad. Because for a lot of people, this is what I hear a lot of people, they're just like, I put so much work into that, and now what? For what? And there's so much we can do with it. But obviously we all know a lot of stuff happened, right? So there was helpful content stuff coming out before ChatGPT, right? But a lot of blogs, especially if they were creating good original content, were still doing really well. And then ChatGPT launched at the end of November 2022. Within 5 days, it had 1 million users. And by January, just 2 months later, there were 100 million monthly active users. For comparison, to get to 100 million monthly active users, it took TikTok 9 months. And TikTok held the record before this. It was the fastest growing new app or platform at that point, and probably still. And then later, a few months later in March, Google updated the algorithm, and that spelled the end for a lot of blogs. Essentially, they seem to disappear from, especially page one of Google. And something that I hear all the time from people is page one of Google, and it used to be you'd get a little snippet, and that was actually a quote from someone's blog. Now you get 5 paragraphs of AI generated content that's taken from people's blogs. And then you get a whole bunch of suggested stuff, right? Not suggested, sponsored. You get a bunch of sponsored posts. And then you get a reel or a carousel of YouTube videos. And then you get Reddit and maybe some other forums, right? And then after you've scrolled for 5 minutes, then you start to get to organic content. So even if you rank number 1 organically, it's what's the point? And so the point there is, with all that's happened, there's kind of 1-2 punch for bloggers, and we'll talk about that briefly here. The point is that the SEO approach, this organic, we're going to get a bunch of traffic because we wrote good content, that's just not really happening much today. So these pictures just represent a couple things, this 1-2 punch. First, ChatGPT came out, and immediately people took advantage, and there was a huge explosion of low-quality, mass-produced content, just on a scale like we'd never seen before. I mean, if you're a blogger, you already dealt with people spinning your content. You dealt with people just straight up copying your content. You saw all this, and it was frustrating. But then what we saw was they didn't have to do that anymore. They could just generate garbage. But if you knew how to prompt ChatGPT at all, you could also optimize it for SEO. And so it didn't matter that it was incorrect, misinformation. It didn't matter that it was low quality because it would outrank. And so that diluted the search results. And then the second thing is, as the search results are not as good, and as the organic content is further down anyway, it's not great for the user, right? But the AI tools, they're getting better. And so something that I didn't think would be adopted as quickly as it was is people skipping Google and just going straight to their favorite AI and asking it for information. And at first I was like, no, it's going to take a while for people's behavior to change. And then my behavior changed. And you know what? There's good reason for it. When I go use an AI tool, first of all, I'll have existing threads or projects or custom GPTs I've created that have all sorts of context. And context is the thing. Google will save context because you're logged in, right? So it sees other stuff you've searched, but it's all just a mix of all the things you've searched and the stuff that your kids have searched on your account and all sorts of things, right? So it doesn't have as much context, but with like ChatGPT, if I go into an existing thread where I've been talking to it, I've had a back and forth, it's got all this context. And I can have a back and forth dialogue. And it can cite stuff for me, and I can go to that content when I need it. And so it's just become a useful tool that has, what all that's done is it's led to shrinking the pie for blog content, people actually clicking through. So that leads to the question, is it even worth the effort anymore? And I want to talk about first how we're going to reframe this opportunity. Because yes, the traffic numbers are a lot lower today across the board. It's not just like somebody else is beating you. There's just fewer people clicking through to the blog posts. But the people that make it to that point, this higher value traffic. It's more qualified traffic, right? We can convert that traffic a lot better. You're not going to get the same kind of numbers we saw before with, the SEO approach that we took before, but that value is a lot higher. And then we can use, so then what the blog is now is an opportunity in a lot of ways for us to build real trust and real authority in a way that a lot of other content creators are not. I'd say most content creators, especially young content creators today, they're jumping onto TikTok, they're jumping onto YouTube, they're jumping onto wherever. But how many of them have a central hub of their own website and a brand, a domain name that they've purchased? It's like if you've already done this work to create your blog, you have something that most people don't have. And it's a place where that whole network of all your content can kind of come together. The other thing is, from an SEO standpoint, I'm just going to throw this out there real quick. If it's local search, SEO is still working. When somebody does a search for something like, I'm looking for something specific, and not even just local, I would say business in general, when somebody's looking for a solution that's not just information, that's what Google serves them. And so if you have blog content on your website, but your brand is also has an offering, is a business, then when people go searching for that type of offering, they're more likely to actually land on your stuff. But when people just ask their question that they used to Google, they're just not getting to our blog content the way they used to. And the blog content that you've created, it helps to build that authority. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we're going to stand out in this sea of garbage content, how we're going to stand out against Reddit and all the other stuff showing up in Google search. How is it that we're going to do this? And we're going to stand out in the sea of AI content, partially by using AI. So we're going to talk about how we're going to do this, okay? Join them, but in a different way, okay? Here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to be content vomiting the way that a lot of people have been doing, right? We're not going to have this bland, same content that's like just plain information, but obviously written by an AI with no human experience behind it. We're not going to create SEO optimized spam. That's not what we're doing, right? AI, first of all, people did that, and it just kind of ruined the game for all of us, but it didn't work for them for more than a couple months, right? AI is not going to grow your traffic, and it's not going to grow your bottom line on its own. What it can do is it can support you, it can support your strategy, but it can't replace you. I heard on a podcast, by the way, if you're into AI and stuff, there's a really good podcast called Beyond the Prompt. The guy that hosts it is a professor at the Stanford D School and super awesome guy that I met a year ago. And he interviews people that are doing really, really cool things with AI. And in one of the interviews he did, someone said something that stuck with me. I don't remember who it was, but I remember how it made me feel. Right? We've heard this a bunch, right? And I remember what he said. And what he said was, AI should not be the thought leader. It should be your thought partner. if it's your partner, it can help you in so many ways. If you're expecting it to give you the ideas, to give you all the information, that's what's not going to work. Okay, so that's not what we're going to do. And if you do have a bunch of blog content and you feel like you've wasted your time, we're gonna disabuse you of that feeling right now, because there's a lot that we can do. And if you don't have a blog yet and you're still here for some reason, we're going to show you how blog content fits, right? How this strategy fits. So we're going to start by leveraging what we have. First of all, make an AI. If you're using ChatGPT, make a custom GPT that knows your content. The easiest, I did this yesterday. I hadn't done this yet, and I should have. So I went ahead and tried it, and it was super easy. I went to a blog that I have. It's a preparedness blog that I made, and I installed a WordPress plugin called ProPrint Projects, and really I just searched for a plugin that will print my whole blog to a PDF. That's it, right? And it did it. It took a few seconds, and I got a 300-page PDF. And then I went to ChatGPT, and I created a new project called Pantry Preparedness Content Knowledge Base, KB. And I uploaded a file to it, which is a 300-page PDF, right? And that took me a minute. And then now I have a project here in my ChatGPT account that has that context of all of the information that I've written on the blog. And so what can you do with this? You can do so many things. I literally just was one idea I had was, what if I just ask it? I did this yesterday. What if I just ask it, can you give me 10 ideas for social media posts using principles, concepts, and direct quotes from the Pantry Preparedness document? And it quick popped me out 10 different social media post ideas. And some of them, it literally gave me a quote from an article, which it's citing the quote. And then it says, here's an idea. You could make a carousel that shows different, so here I said, depending on where you live, local flooding might look like heavy rains or coastal storms or dam failures, whatever. That was from an article. So the post idea was show different types of disasters by region, just in a bunch of posts, kind of in a carousel. And then pose the question, do you know your local risks? Step 1 in prepping is knowing what you're up against. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. You can take this further, and we're not going to go too far down that rabbit hole in this talk, because it's a talk about blogging, not about AI agents and stuff. But you can take this a step further, and you can start automating this stuff, right? I could literally have it generate a whole bunch of social media posts on all the different categories for my blog, and I could create an automation that puts them into ClickUp or something like that. And then once they go into ClickUp and they're tagged a certain way, then it goes off and generates images or pulls images from my website that fit, right? And then generates the caption and stuff. And then I could have it literally go post that if I wanted to, or I could have it put it somewhere for human review, or but it's literally using my content, my ideas. And that's one of the things that I am using AI for all the time. Somebody called me out recently because they said, I was noticing in some of the new lessons in the courses that you have, that the summary text below the videos has quite a few M dashes. And people don't know how to use M dashes. And my response was, well, I went to business school and took business communication, and I actually do like to use M dashes. It's true. I do too. Yes, right? They're a better tool in many cases than a semicolon or a comma or a parentheses. It's a good tool, and that's why ChatGPT uses it. But most people don't use them properly, and so it's kind of a tell. And I was like, well, first of all, yes, I do use M dashes, but second of all, I also did use ChatGPT. But here's what I did. I created a custom GPT where the instructions in the GPT tells it exactly what to do. And I take a video that I've recorded, I upload it to the platform for my course, it generates a transcript, the platform does that, right? YouTube will do that for you. I do this actually, I use the same GPT on YouTube videos. Now, I told it, I want you to give me timestamps, I want you to essentially kind of outline the video with kind of the main segments of what the video is. And give me sort of that outline with timestamps that I could then use, right? So then below the lesson, I can post the timestamps, and I can do that on all my YouTube videos. I used to have to like watch through the video and like, what time does this start, you know? Or I'd have my editor try to mark it, you know, when he finished the final edit. But no, now I can do that. But then I also said, now give me a summary, and then I worked back and forth with it to figure out getting the tone right and everything. And then I said, I want you to give me a list of action items that I said for people to do in the video. Like, what things did I specifically tell them they should do? And that, you can imagine for a course, that's really helpful. So many times people are like, yeah, I went back and, you know, I wanted to go check out that lesson again, and I had to rewatch this 20-minute video to remember what it is you told me to do. It's like, well, no, now I got a list below it. So I've got timestamps, a lesson summary, a list of action items, and then I have it give me a list of things I promised to link to. Okay, right? Like, if you've made content, how many times have you been like, well, I'll give you a link to this in the description, and then you're like, I don't remember what I said. Or what got cut out, what my editor cut out, I don't know. Anyway, so many examples of things we can do, and that's just an easy one. Like, I ran the whole blog through here. I asked for 10 post ideas, and honestly, like, they're all pretty dang good ideas. So there's, you know, kind of number one. All right, let's go back to the presentation because I can get going on that for a long time. The next thing that we're going to do, because now that you've got this, you've printed your blog, you've created maybe a custom GPT or a project with all of your blog content as the source. Now what we can do is we can use that to create new content like I just showed you, right? Social media content. And we're going to talk about this and that in just a minute here, how we're going to use that social media content. But we can also use this to upgrade the blog itself. So what we should be doing for our blog content today is different than what we used to do. Get back in here. All right. All right, so here's how we're going to revamp our blog. First of all, consolidating content. It used to be, a lot of times we could take like one simple search query, one question people have, and write a 1,000-word blog post, really in-depth answering one little question. And, you know, sometimes that still is effective or useful today, but a lot of times, because it's like such a specific question, it's only a piece of what people are really looking for, right? And sometimes it's like you fill an article with a little bit of fluff because you're like, I got to get like at least 1,000 words, but really I could answer this in 200. So I'll give some examples and things, and you know, that can all be really helpful. But one of the things that is a really good idea today is to look for ways to take that information and create fewer resources on your website, fewer pages, fewer posts, but each one being a more complete resource. Well, that's a huge undertaking. If you have a blog with 300 blog posts on it, and now you're like, okay, well, which ones do I match up together? You know, which search queries should go together in one blog post? And then how do I consolidate those 3 articles into one? Do I just like copy and paste them all together and then go through it and clean it up a little bit and make it flow? Well, now you can ask the AI to group blog posts together in logical things based upon resources that people would need, like, and refine the prompt. Like, if that doesn't quite work for you, then ask it a little bit different way. Just say like, you know, but how would you group all these different blog posts from this PDF that I have? You know, which topics should go really well together to be able to make a much more complete resource? And then it'll do that for you, right? And then you can feed it those blog posts or just say, hey, look at the content from those 3 blog posts and write me one complete article using the examples, using the tone, using all the, you know, like, it's your information, it's your style, it's your, again, your examples that you used, your research that you did. But now it's just combining it, and it can do it in seconds instead of you having to spend hours on it. So we can consolidate our website into fewer but much more complete resources, and those will be more beneficial. And we'll talk here a little bit about why. We'll give you 2 at once. Okay. The next thing we need to do with our blogs is we need to make sure that, because, you know, a lot of us put a lot of work into creating a lot of content, and I know with a lot of my content, like very, very informative, right? But the AIs are really informative. They're good at that. They're not always accurate, but they're good at the information. So what do? We humanize it, right? That's what people want, right? People remember how you make them feel. It's harder to make people feel things in text than it is like on video or in person, right? But I read stories that make me feel different than when I just read straight up information. So how do we do that? Like we add our voice, we add our experience and authority and authenticity. You can use AI to help you with that, but you can also, that can be the part where because you can train your GPT with stories. One thing that a lot of people miss with using AI, like using ChatGPT, is the back and forth, right? So it's like, okay, it consolidated these 3 blog posts into one bigger resource. That's great. Now I want to add some stories. I don't know what I should add to this to really humanize it. So then you say, well, okay, ChatGPT, this blog post is great, but I need to add some personal stories, and I don't know what to do. Will you ask me 5 questions, one at a time, interview me about my experiences around this, like just ask me very specific questions to help figure out what to put into this blog post. Doing that with pretty much anything, like, oh, I'm struggling with my business, what should I do? Okay, well, give it some context about your business and then say, now ask me 10 questions or ask me 5 questions to give you more context that you need to help me find a solution. And then the AI has way more information to be able to actually help you through the solution. And we can do the same thing here. The next one, something we've been teaching for actually several years now, but it's more important than ever, is original research. If you have a blog post that literally just says the same thing that you researched on other people's blog posts, it's not nearly as helpful as a resource. Now, what I have always classified as original research is pretty much anything that you gather yourself directly. It can be anything from you did a case study, you did a survey of an audience, you ran an experiment of some kind, whatever fits your niche. You gathered some data. In the finance space, like surveys of people can be great, right? Fantastic ways to gather data. An interview is a type of original research. You interview somebody with experience on some topic, and then now you use that information. Maybe the article isn't just a transcript of the interview, right? But you're pulling from that and you're using that as original research. Next, personal hooks. This is going beyond the voice and story, but tying humanness into our content. If you're sharing, like, you're talking about something and you can share an example of a personal failure that you had. Well, that makes us human. A journey that you went on, that makes us human. And so our writing, instead of just being as informative maybe as it once was, now we make it more human. And honestly, again, if you start having these back and forths with your AI to help pull this stuff out of you, then it's going to be able to make a lot of suggestions and even help write a lot of this up for you. But again, it's your experience in your life. Next. Content arcs in series. We see this with video. We see it in podcasts. A really powerful tool that we've used on websites off and on, should be using it pretty much all the time, but since I started blogging, for over a decade, is serial content. I think pretty much every blog should have on the homepage, when somebody goes to the blog, it should have a start here. Like, you're here, you came to my website, like you're looking for something. If you're my target audience, here's the something that you probably need. And if you go to it and it's not what you needed, then you're probably not my target audience, and that's okay, right? And some websites will have a few different start here's, right? It'll be kind of like you might have like 3 things at the top, and it's like, if they click on one of them, it's going to take them to a page, and then from there, it kind of starts with here's your step 1, and it doesn't have to be written out that way, but it's like, here's the first thing that you need to do. It's like, you're on a journey to get out of debt. Okay, yeah, step 1, here's what we need to do. And it works for everything. I mean, I've done it on websites about everything from like teaching people how to blog. Obviously, there's here's how to get started. But we've done it with preparedness. Like, hey, you want to get more prepared? Here's where to start. Here's the things that are most critical for you to have in place in case of an emergency, right? And then, and actually before that, I think I had a step that was more like just kind of evaluating where you're at, right? And so then you end up with giving people like a series of 5 or 10 different things that they should do, right? And so they go through the first one, and then what do they do when they're done with that? Like, they click through to page 2. And so now they're clicking through to multiple things on your site. Now, instead of getting somebody that comes to your site, consumes one piece of content, leaves, doesn't remember the brand, doesn't remember the site they went to, they're like, oh, that was cool, that was really helpful. Well, now they've clicked through to multiple things. The odds of them remembering that, the odds of them bookmarking that and coming back are higher. And when we're giving them all this value along the way, there's opportunities for calls to action, which is not the next one. No, it is. It's the next one. There's opportunities for calls to action. I don't know why I'm getting 2 at a time. Every post, every page on our website should have some kind of call to action. With blogs, again, we are able to get into this kind of rhythm of we create a lot of, you write an article. Your goal is to get that article found on Google. People will click through that article. Maybe you link to another article so that hopefully they'll click through to another one too. Occasionally, maybe you'll have like a, hey, sign up for my email newsletter. But even then, sometimes it's just kind of like a little, it's just there in the middle of the blog. Like there's not really a call to action from the content. And we were able to get away with that because Google sent us so much traffic for a long time. Now when people come to our site, like we need to delight them with what they get. And that's why I say make every page on your site like a useful resource. If people come to that, there should be a reason they came to it, and it should fulfill that reason. And then they should take some action. Hopefully they're subscribing to some kind of newsletter or something, which we're going to talk about also in a second. And then lastly, multimedia layering. If you're going to start posting on social, which is absolutely what we need to start doing. If you're a blogger, you need to be on social. Okay, like let's interconnect all this stuff, right? We may be decently good at linking from our social media content back to our website, but tie all these together, right? So put your other media into your blog post and help people engage and connect with you in different ways. And sometimes that is the call to action, right? Somebody sees in the middle of your article, they see this tweet or they see this video from your YouTube channel or they see whatever they see, and they're like, oh, they have this other social media content, and they click through to that, and then they're like, I'm going to subscribe to that, and now they're more connected. Like very few people subscribe to blog RSS feeds today. Like people stopped doing that like a decade ago, but they subscribe to social media content all the time. All right, so that's what we're going to do to the blog. Do as many of these things as you can, but we also all do a lot of other things. So that's where it's like, if you can use AI to shortcut some of that and help you consolidate your content, help you turn it into better resources and interview you to get you to put in more human elements and stuff into it and help you redo that much more quickly, like that's fantastic. But obviously, like we all have a lot of other things that we're doing too. And so even if you start by just creating a few really helpful resources on your blog that you would want to link to from other places, that is a great starting point. But we need some of those so that we can have a place to drive traffic to. So once your site's now filled with some good resources, we're going to use social media to drive traffic. And some ways to do that is, we talked about this, using your blog AI that you've created to generate those social media posts. And it can be as simple as having them just give you ideas. Again, those ideas it gave me I thought were really good. It's given me kind of a caption and an idea of what kind of photos I could post. So people that don't want to be on camera, people that don't want to do video, at least you can do photos, right? And you can post this on Instagram and on Facebook and on X. Then we want to choose the best platform for our audience and then go ahead and reuse it on the rest. But we want to create the content that we're creating for our target audience And the ideal content you create is going to differ a little bit depending on what social media platforms you use. So it's like, if I want to target, Gen Z and younger, TikTok's a place you should probably get to know. And so we want to create content that fits the TikTok algorithm, right? And that people are likely to watch longer on TikTok so that, and they'll be more likely to follow us and they'll see us pop up in their feeds. If that's not your target demographic, then, TikTok might be secondary. But if you are going to create some video content and you're going to do it in the vertical kind of short format and you're doing it for Instagram, well, go ahead and post it to TikTok. Ideally, if we were all big media companies with big teams, right, we would create content specifically for TikTok, and we'd create a separate content specifically for Instagram, and a separate one for Facebook, even though Instagram and Facebook are the same company and you can upload it to both platforms at the same time. They don't have quite the same audiences. And so, ideally, we would create something different for every single platform. Honestly, in most of our cases, we're one person, maybe have one or two other people helping us. Choose the primary platform where most of your audience is likely to be. Create content for that platform. Get to know that platform really well. Follow people on social media. Follow YouTubers who are teaching Facebook, or whatever. It's funny because they'll probably be posting their videos on YouTube, even though they're teaching Facebook. And it's just because YouTube it's a great platform for that kind of content, for having video libraries. Yes, you can post long-form videos on Facebook, but nobody goes and clicks on my page and then looks for all my videos. It just isn't structured in that way, right? And so a lot of that content's on YouTube. But go there and follow those people that will teach you that platform that you need to learn and learn it and create your content for that, but then repurpose it and put it everywhere else. And then the other thing is post regularly. If there's one message that I hope that you've gotten, especially a lot of the talks that I've been to this week, and I just corroborate what they say, where people were talking about video content specifically, YouTube or any other platform, is you start posting and nothing will happen. But if you just keep going, two things will happen. One, you'll get enough content that the algorithms will figure out who you are and what you do and what your content is, and they'll figure out who to give it to. Because they're going to be testing it on some people. It's just that when you're brand new, they're not going to throw it on the homepage of YouTube and test it with everybody. That would be amazing because then they could get really quick data. But if they did that with everybody's first video, you would never find what you actually want. So they test it in small experiments and they see who watches it and who watches it the longest and what are the other channels they watch. And there's all these things going on for them to figure out who your audience is. And these social media platforms, they're doing a lot of that work for us. If you think of traditional media and traditional advertising, it used to be that you had to do all this market research to figure out what television programs is my audience likely to be watching at what times of day and stuff. And then, okay, so we're going to film a commercial and we're going to make sure it plays during the right television shows. And if it's really premium ones, it's going to cost us a lot more. And no, now we got these platforms with algorithms that are literally designed to feed people's addictions, unfortunately. But they're going to get your content in front of the right people if you create enough content for them to figure out what you really are, and you give it enough chances. And I also think there's something in these algorithms where it's if you only publish a few things and then you kind of take a break and then you publish a little more and take a break, or you give up, they're not going to do a lot of testing with those first few videos, or posts of whatever kind, whether it's video or anything else. Because the reality is the vast majority of people who create an account with the intent to create content don't get very far past the first piece of content. I can't remember the number, but it's very high. And I think it's probably more than 90%. I think it's over 90% of people who, not just people who have a YouTube account. So if you have a YouTube account, you kind of have a channel, even if you never publish anything. But people who actually create content for YouTube, over 90% of them will never reach the point of being monetized by the partner program, which means you have 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time within a year. Or it's different if you're doing shorts. You got to have 1 million views or something like that. I've never done it that way. I always do it with the long form content. But most people will never get that far. And the thing is, for anybody who's doing YouTube professionally, that's a very low bar. But for most people, they'll never get there because they don't create enough content. So publish regularly, okay? That's it. Like, that's what we're going to do to drive traffic. Is we're going to use these social platforms that are literally designed to put eyeballs on your stuff, and we're going to get them to see that. And then, obviously, they're within the content. We got to be a little bit careful how often we push them to the website. So because if in every YouTube video you publish, people that watch it all want to go click off of YouTube, YouTube will stop showing your video. And the same is true of all social media platforms. Except Pinterest changed this. For a while, Pinterest was doing the same thing, and it was like, isn't the whole point of Pinterest so that people go click to the content? And yet, Pinterest was like, no, but we want to keep them on the platform. They figured that out maybe 2 years ago, and so now Pinterest actually rewards you if people click through and go to your blog post. But for a while, it was not rewarding you for that. So they do change their models, but we want to just make sure that we understand and have a good strategy. Ideally, we want to, in a lot of our content, we want to get people to click through to follow or subscribe. We want people to ideally click through to another piece of content that we have, depending on the platform. And then, like on YouTube, one of the best strategies that we've ever used is we'll have a handful of videos that have it's just a very clear, the video kind of guides you to a conclusion that, yeah, I need to go over to your website and buy something, or I need to go over to your website and join a free community or sign up for your email list or whatever. And we do that in fewer pieces of content, but then our other content, what does it do? It directs you on a path toward those ones. So we say, well, on the next video you should watch is this one, and that one then points them, after they've watched 2 or 3 videos, now they're way warmed up to you, and now they're ready, when you invite them, they're ready to click through and at least go sign up for a newsletter, because they're like, this is somebody that I trust. Okay, then we're going to make it future resistant. I say resistant. There's no such thing as future proof, I believe. We don't know what things are going to look like tomorrow. The age of AI has things changing really fast. But how are we going to make our blog, our business, our content more future resistant? I'm way more focused on trust over traffic. I would rather that the people that found my content had a really positive experience and came to trust me. So it's less about virality and a lot more about just building that connection and building trust. And honestly, I treat that as an investment. Just if I get my paycheck and I'm like, well, I get the most enjoyment when I go buy stuff with it, right? Cool. I get my stuff. But if I take some of that and I invest it and set it aside, then what happens over time, right? It compounds and we make more money over the long term. And eventually it's well, now I got money coming in for free every month, essentially. I got so much interest coming in that I can buy all the stuff. And so I treat it as the trust as an investment. Bake the trust now. It's been huge for me in my business because there was a huge part of my audience that was interested in blogging. And the last couple of years, been kind of tough for blogging, right? And so that impacts my business for sure. But I have focused on trust and I focused on trying to be consistent. And there are a lot of people that have stuck it out for a long time and continued paying me while I've helped and I have the community where they can find the support and work together to find answers and work together on learning AI and work together on learning other social media and stuff. And so, but there's trust, and because of that trust, it's they're willing to stick it out. And then the other piece that we're going to do to make it resistant is we're going to own our customer list. That's it's key. It's hard with social media platforms. You don't really know who follows you. You can post something I can have 240,000 YouTube subscribers, and I can publish a video, and only a small percentage of them will see that in their feed at all. And the same is true for Facebook. The same is true for Instagram. The same is true for every social media platform. You don't own your list. You don't have a way to make sure you contact everyone. other than posting the same thing repeatedly until hopefully they all see it. Like you don't. And so this is one of the huge values that we have if you've been blogging, if you have a website, is if we can get people to go back to the website, and if we can get people to sign up for a newsletter, if we can get people to participate there, then now we can capture that information. We can, and now we have a way that we can reach out to them. And yeah, sure, some of the emails will not get opened and not get read and not get seen, and that's always going to be true. But you have a direct line to your audience, and so that's what we want to do as much as possible. Email lists are great. I've switched over because I have a paid community that people are a part of, but the platform that does that, I just created a free tier in the same platform. And so instead of signing up for an email list, they get to sign up for a free community, which is cooler, right? Like being part of a free community, that feels more valuable than. And guess what I can do with all the members of that community? I can email them. So it's also an email list. So it's great, and there's a lot of platforms that can do that kind of stuff. I use Circle. Actually, Pat Flynn, who was here, he's on the board of Circle. He's the one that told me I should use Circle, and I'm really glad I did. But if you want to do email, email's great, and there's a lot of really cool advanced ways we can do that. Kits here, they're fantastic. I've used them. I've used a lot of different platforms for that. So, all right, what do we end up with? We end up with the result. We get a blog that does keep growing traffic and influence long term. And the thing is, and I'm seeing this, it's been a while, obviously, since March 2023. Been a couple years now, and I'm getting messages from people who are saying, my traffic's coming back slowly. It's not what it once was, and I don't think it's ever going to be what it once was. But the people that stuck it out, that created really good, helpful, useful content, and who are doing these kinds of things, they're seeing their businesses recover. And they're seeing the blog itself still drive traffic. It may not all be from search anymore. It may be because of social media. It's also, who knows what's going to change. There was just a ruling on an antitrust case that might lead to something. It might not. The idea being that Google will end up with a smaller market share of search. And you know what? Bing shows organic content a lot better than Google does. So the more other search engines people use, the more our content will get seen again. But if we focus on those things and making that blog be just an excellent resource, that's going to be awesome. So that's it. That's what I got. I've got here a QR code. You can download the slides. If they'll let me, I don't know. I don't know what the rules are yet. I'll have to ask. But I'm supposed to actually get the video for this, so I might post it on that page too, if that's okay with them. It probably isn't. You probably have to pay for that. They'll probably tell me no. I don't know. But that's it. So I ended up using more of the time than I thought, but we probably have time for a question or two, if anybody has any.